Hello, BookTube. Well, as you can see, I have a guest with me. This is Micah
Hello.
Cummins, who's well familiar with a lot of my imaginary BookTube friends, are also his imaginary BookTube friends. And Micah thought he would come on today on a Zoom call in order to make an official announcement that he and Anna Novella, for their year-long event, Classics and Company, are giving the boot to all of their loser co-hosts except me, and
Ditching
that
it going except Steve.
everyone else is gone. You're all out of there. I'm going to be the co-host for all of the classics. And then we're figuring that around March or April, we're going to phase out Micah and Anna Novella and just have me.
Just you. It's the only BookTube opinion that matters when the day is done.
there's only one person in the camera view here who matters. It's not me.
BookTube is a bunch of people faking that their opinions matter. We all know it's just yours, Steve. We're just playing on your playground.
But no, actually, we do have a subject today. And it's a fairly interesting one. I bet a lot of people will be interested even if they don't make BookTube videos. And I think we would probably agree that it all springs from one hilarious video that we both watched, a video by Michael K. Vaughn
Yes.
he made just recently, where he was vibrating. He was freaking out so much because it was all joking, because that's the fun of this, is that it's not serious. It's all voluntary. But he was joking about how once you get into the BookTube ecosystem, it's pulling at you in all directions. There are a million different things that you.
It was a joke, but like most comedy, it was also.
It was also true. Yes,
it was also true.
Now, my first question before we broaden things out is, I want to know what you think of that, because you made a video about that a month before Mike did, saying that you want to slow down in terms of BookTube commitments.
Yes.
Was that video? That video had to have been made in response to the same kind of "they all want a piece of me."
Absolutely, it was. Yeah, it's sort of. It's very easy to say yes to things before you realize the time commitment involved, particularly with dedicated reading events. When you want to do multiple, when you want to do buddy reads with someone alongside that month-long reading event, when you have your personal reading that you want to do and the personal videos you want to put out, it's a major time commitment on all of those fronts. And I think it's easy to get deeply involved before you realize sort of what you're signing yourself up for in the long run.
And then you're trapped, right? Because
because you feel you genuinely have
you don't want to let people down.
Yes. Right. You don't want to let people down, number one. And then number two, you have a genuine interest in that event. That's why you agreed to do it. And so you're sort of stuck between not wanting to let people down, but then also wanting to do the event, truly wanting to. But then finding yourself completely up against a wall, time-wise.
And the being up against the wall, time-wise, derives in large part from the fact that people have the same problem that you do. It had a name. Was it?
This whole job thing.
Job, that's it. It was job. It was
a 40-hour-a-week commitment, 5 days a week.
In the Bible, the word job is synonymous with endless misery. And it seems like the word job in the real world is the same thing.
It's a direct connection.
So that gets in the way,
right?
And lots of other things do. I don't remember off the top. I should have researched for this Zoom call. I don't remember how many kids you have, but they get in the way too. They're constantly dragging you. It's just ridiculous.
Constantly dragging, calling me, interrupting my video making. I've
had it said over the years to me that my enthusiasm for jumping into events has caused other people to jump into events, and then they belatedly remember that I don't do anything. I don't do anything other than read. So of course,
it's good to remember. It's good to remember we cannot follow in the steps of Steve because you are on another level.
Well, I advise it, but I'm always laughed at. I don't know how many times I've advised you to simply tell your boss. I've told so many of you, just tell your boss.
Steve leave.
It's Steve leave. You need Steve leave.
I need Steve leave.
Apparently it's not a real thing. But
it should be.
Would you agree? I wonder if you would agree that part of this, if we were to zoom out just a little, is an effect of social media, not just BookTube, but social media.
Absolutely.
It's a secondary world that isn't quite real, and it starts to bring out an unreal version of you.
It does.
Is that why you curtail social media quite a bit, right? Your demographic, you have hardly any social media footprint at all.
Oh yeah, I'm on BookTube. I'm present on Goodreads. I have a Discord server for my channel. That's considered social media, but I'm not very active in that compared to the other people who are active in there. Yeah, so I've sort of pulled away, and it's partly due to the time commitment as well. Because I know I could do an extension of my channel on Instagram. I could do a channel, an extension of my channel on TikTok, or whatever other options are out there. But all of those are added time commitments that take away from reading or take away from my other commitments I've already made here on BookTube that I want to.
They could make you insanely wealthy.
They could, but is it worth it? I don't think so.
You're very young. You get yourself a couple of ring lights, start making content-free Sally Rooney videos on TikTok, the money would be rolling in.
They'll sell out. I'd have to sell out.
So off the top of your head, can you reel off all of the BookTube commitments that you have right now? You have at least one with me.
I do, yeah. So I'm doing Essex Dogs with you, which is going wonderfully. I'm doing Classes and Company this month and every month this year with Anne.
And that represents that. So that means one book.
Right.
And
so that's one book.
It's one book, but it's over a whole month. And it's not exactly a demanding read.
No, not at all. And then, so we'll be starting The Book of Disquiet by Fernando Pessoa, and that'll be for 1 month. So that's one book over 1 month.
Right.
And then I'm having a buddy read in starting soon, another buddy read with Anne. And then I will be doing, hopefully soon, we haven't planned this yet, but a buddy read with Kim from Middle of the Book March. We're hoping to do our first buddy read together. But those, again, represent one book over a month. But
those add up, right?
They do.
Especially one of the books. I mean, one of your books is Anna Karenina, and the other one is Tale of Genji. Those are not small commitments.
Right.
And it's probably likely that when our Essex Dog buddy read is over, I'm just going to draft you into another buddy read. I mean, what are you going to do?
I'm expecting it. I'm expecting it.
So you've noticed, you've been on BookTube less time than I have, but you've noticed that it has that effect. You start to accumulate these things that want your time.
Absolutely.
Do you, I mean, I myself think that is charming. I love that. I think that's one of the aspects in which BookTube makes a very solitary hobby feel more communal.
I agree.
Are you at that point, or are you starting to get closer to the vibrating end of wondering, is this too much?
I don't think I'm getting to the point where I think it's too much. I think it's sort of, I don't want to say the shock factor of starting out, but it's sort of the initial feeling of excitement mixed with the sort of like, what have I gotten myself into? There's so much here that I need to do, and I want to make sure I do it all well. So I think it's a mix of sort of just realizing the amount of opportunities of events that there are out there, of how many books I could read with so many other people.
Yeah,
I could do it all right now, and I should be doing it all right now. And
there had to be an element of shock involved, just in terms of being surprised about how genuinely welcoming BookTube can be, how energetically welcoming it can be.
I knew at the beginning,
really not a community where you have to sort of wait around for people to embrace you.
Absolutely not. I mean, it took me, I think it was 2 days after I posted my first video on my channel that I was already being messaged by other booktubers and other viewers in the BookTube community, just talking to me about books. Not even passing the, hey, welcome to BookTube, and just jumping right in full force to asking my opinion on a book, asking me, certain questions about what I was reading.
Right.
And
giving you their own opinions. So all of a sudden, you go from having, well, you come from a bookish family. So you probably had half a dozen regularly ongoing book conversations, but you go from that to having 4 dozen.
Right.
You can imagine how much that means to people who don't have any.
All sorts of readers. Absolutely. Yeah. But it's a great feeling too, though, because you realize, I mean, when you're a viewer on BookTube, that community is still somewhat present just within the audience. So like on your Steve streams, your audience, they're chatting with each other as well. That's the community. But when you're a creator,
eyes on the prize. I discourage them from talking amongst each other. That's why I recoil.
They shouldn't be doing it, but they are.
The minute I realized what Discord was, I couldn't get away from it fast enough. It
facilitates each other, not
Oh, no. It has to be not only directed at me, but entirely about me. Yes. I'm on a couple of the groups that I'm involved with have Discords. In addition to that, disquietingly democratic attitude, it also seems bewildering to me. It mustn't to you if you started one of your own. I honestly don't know where to look. I know that's a very old person thing.
I wouldn't go that far. It actually is somewhat bewildering to me as well. I just started one because I felt it would be the best way to have so many people for Classics and Company. I wasn't sure if we could have 100 people in a Voxer group or not. So I thought, let's just go right to the bigger, the bigger platform.
It must work for people.
But it's distracting for me too, honestly. I don't find it very intuitive.
I go to a Discord that I'm part of, and I'll spend 5 minutes looking for where the verbal discussions are. Yes. It's all cartoons. It's all.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way. I'm lucky to have a friend who has a fairly large YouTube channel, just in the general YouTube world, outside of BookTube, and he helped me set up a Discord, and he walked me through, how it works and where to look. Because if I did it alone, I would probably still be fumbling trying to make an account.
I have four friends who are YouTubers out in the general YouTube world, not part of BookTube at all. Didn't know that BookTube existed until I told them.
Yeah.
And they all have Discords, and every single one of them says that they haven't visited their Discord in a year.
Really?
Their own Discord. It's thriving. They know that. They can see the numbers, but they haven't gone in forever. They almost feel like they wouldn't know what to say. The conversation has gone on beyond them. They're not part of it anymore.
Well, I mean, I understand that feeling, just sort of on a much smaller scale with our Classics and Company, our reading of Dangerous Liaisons. The chat in Discord took off for that book, and I was absent from the chat for maybe 3 or 4 days. It was during the work week, so I had lots going on, and I came back in, and I couldn't even figure out where to get in the conversation. It had gone so far beyond.
Now, okay, well, this connects with the subject of I guess what I want to call BookTube burnout, as long as we all understand that I mean it tongue in cheek, because this is all voluntary. We could all stop doing all of this today.
Oh, absolutely.
Go back to reading whatever you want with nobody else involved. I myself think the positives outweigh the negatives, but it's all voluntary. But I'm still going to call it burnout, because BookTube burnout is a great term.
It is.
And it's great that in this neighborhood of BookTube, we would use it, with a twinkle in the eye, because in the bad parts of BookTube, the sellout parts of BookTube, the million subscriber parts of BookTube, they say it unironically.
Right.
They think,
and then they leave.
Again, they could leave at any minute. So if you say it unironically, you're only making a fool of yourself. But they do, which is why I like co-opting the term. But if we're talking about BookTube burnout, were you thinking about that when you decided to make a Discord chat? Because in your earlier video this year, where you said slowing down on BookTube.
Right. And then I started a year-long reading event with the Discord server.
A year-long reading event with a Discord server, where the Discord server is, I've talked to another booktuber who said it's another thing I have to pay attention to.
Right.
Because, you might say, I was gone for 3 days and the conversation went on without me, but you do have to pay some attention to it, because what if somebody starts scamming or bullying? Your Discord server, you have to pay attention to it.
Exactly. I have to be somewhat aware of what's going on, because I'm the only one who can kick people out if I need to.
Right. Exactly. Did you worry when you did that maybe that was going against the ethos of slowing down on BookTube?
I did. I definitely did. But I sort of came back to the pros outweighing the cons of realizing, yes, it is adding more time commitments to my plate, but it's also going to increase the ability of connecting with other readers and other booktubers than if I just pull the plug and go back to reading completely alone, not talking to any other readers about anything ever again. So it's sort of finding that balance.
Very reassuring to see Frida boring, yawning in the background there. I thought it was only me she found boring. She finds you boring too. That's kind of reassuring in a way.
I'll take it as a compliment. If she finds you boring, she can find me boring.
She's forever yawning in the background of my videos, and everybody has commented how appropriate they find that.
She's done.
But
she's had it.
So you say that it outweighs, that the pros outweigh the cons. I agree with that. But what element of self-control or caution is there even so? Like, you're looking ahead, right? We're in February. March has BookTube events.
Yep, and I'm going to be participating in 2 of them.
Well, there's there are old and venerable ones. There's March Mystery Madness and March of the Mammoths. But there's also new ones. Roger's Cheap Old Book Club continues for March. Your Classics and Company. You might want to catch yourself a raging STD in March. And who knows how many others. And you can look down the line, right? June on the Range, August, Nonfiction November. Does that increase the element of caution, or are you kind of over that?
I would say a little bit of both. It does increase my caution slightly just with my planning of realizing, okay, I will have to say no to something. I cannot say yes every time I get a message asking me to read something, or every time I want to join in an event or, co-host something. So I have to basically decide what's my stopgap? How many can I say yes to until I need to start saying no? So kind of looking down the line, I know I'll have Classics and Company every month for the rest of the year. And then I will take on one other monthly event if it's interesting. But if I do that, I can't do a buddy read with someone, or I can't do an ongoing book club with someone, because I want to also have time to read the books that I'm working on and make videos unrelated to reading events for my channel still. So there's definitely sort of a calculation that has to go into it.
So two temptations. I'm wondering about two temptations that I know other booktubers have felt in either direction. One is to not do any more reading on your own. Just do BookTube related reading.
Which is an obvious fix to that problem.
Have you felt that temptation to just, it's all reading? Maybe I've had some people rationalize it by saying, it's all reading. I'll just devote my reading to BookTube.
Right.
Let BookTube determine what I read.
It's definitely crossed my mind of just saying, okay, if I just scrap any personal reading project and only focus on BookTube related reading, then I can take on more reading events. But I don't think the solution is taking on more reading events, because all that would do is further distract me from each of those subsequent reading events. If I'm reading, 5 books related to a certain event at the same time, I'm not going to be having very much insight on any one of those 5, because I'm going to be scrambling to keep my commitments up. So it's there's no right answer, I don't think.
And then you touched on something else that I'm always interested in. Oh God, is Frida doing yoga? She's trying to upstage us.
She might succeed here.
And I wonder, okay, so you've got to balance. You don't want BookTube to take over your reading life completely. And you mentioned, I also want to make room for reading that I'm doing on my own. Right. I wonder, has BookTube, not necessarily specific events, but just BookTube itself, crowded out completely books that you read without telling anyone that you're reading, without talking about them in any way? Do you talk about all your reading on BookTube? Has BookTube infiltrated that once private world?
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way, because typically I do mention all of the books that I'm currently reading if I do a reading update video or something like that. But there have been times when I have read something and I have decided I'm not going to talk about this. I'm just going to read this book on my own time. Sort of, it's in the background and it's just for me.
That's happened since you had a BookTube channel?
It has. Only a couple of times. And it's typically been with a book that I maybe feel that I don't have enough footing on the subject to talk about it in an educated way. I feel that I need to spend more time with the topic before talking about it. It doesn't happen often.
I wonder. I'm not saying that you're Jack Edwards. I'm not saying that you're a creature of metrics at all. But I'm wondering, has your willingness to read a book and keep it entirely to yourself, not even mention that you're reading it on BookTube, has that willingness decreased as your BookTube profile has increased? Have you done that since you reached 1,000 subscribers? I'm wondering if there's any connection between the two. I'm not saying that you're a
no. It's a good thought. I will say
by summer you're going to be at 2,000 subscribers. That's a pretty big BookTube.
Maybe. I don't know. I lose as much as I gain. So
tell me about it. I'm losing subscribers so fast that by summer I'm going to be at 2,000 subscribers, and then unlike anybody else on BookTube, I'm saying bring it on. Absolutely.
I don't think it's connected. At least it's not intentionally connected. It may be a subconscious connection of, well, this book may not be popular.
What about the timing? The timing will tell whether or not it's connected. Have you done any of that completely private reading since you reached 1,000 subscribers? Can you think of one book? Because if you can't, surely it is connected, right? It would have to be.
I think the last book that I didn't outright mention was, I actually may have mentioned this. It was a biography of what was it? Alexander II. I think I may have mentioned it in passing, but I never reviewed it. I never talked about it in detail.
You never reviewed it. I think you mentioned it and showed it.
I think I did. So I guess I haven't done it since reaching 1,000. Whether or not
you are Jack Edwards.
I guess I am.
Lights are next.
Where's my $20,000 every Friday? Come on, people.
I once thought that I would occasionally have completely private reading, but once you cross the terminus and are openly talking about tentacle fiction, you're going to talk about everything.
About everything.
Once it reached tentacle fiction, I didn't hold back.
There's no turning back.
No, there's no point. What would be the point?
If you aren't hiding that, what would you possibly have the urge to hide?
But I'm wondering, okay, let's say, just for the sake of argument, that has happened. I don't think we're too far off either. I think this is connected with BookTube Burnout. Because I think a lot of people think, well, I wanted more community for what was once upon a time a very solitary thing of mine.
Right.
But maybe it's too much community, and maybe that's starting to make me feel BookTube Burnout. But I'm wondering, connected with that. So if we say, for the sake of argument, that all of your reading in one way or another is touched by BookTube.
Yep.
In other words, you reflect it on your channel. Do you ever feel the reverse of that? Do you ever feel BookTube reaching in to your reading? Do you ever look at a book and think, well, how am I going to present this on my channel? As opposed to, what am I going to think about this? Which is the only way you thought about it before.
Right. I would say on a certain level, I think that definitely enters my reading of just, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to start this book. How am I going to present this later to my audience on my channel? How am I going to dissect this? I don't think it influences my selection of reading.
Oh, okay.
But I do think it influences when I select something and I start reading it, thinking, how am I going to present this? But I don't pick a book saying, oh, this is going to be a successful book on BookTube, just because the books that are a success on BookTube, I don't inherently enjoy reading. I like older, nonfiction works that probably aren't talked about much on BookTube, but that I enjoy reading.
No, no, kind of not. It's even your fellow Russophile Olive at a book Olive occasionally strays out of the court of the Romanovs.
Right.
So yeah, it's not exclusive like in your case. But I'm wondering.
I will say though, BookTube has opened my reading life to other genres, but I haven't gone into those genres thinking, oh, awesome, this is going to open up a new audience for my channel. Right. It's more been, I've never read this thing that all these people are loving. I should try it. Right.
And I wonder, do you think that in your old reading life, the pre-BookTube reading life, if somehow or other, maybe a coworker at this job you mentioned, or if somebody had come to you and said the same thing, oh, here's a thing that I really enjoy, you might enjoy it too, would you have been slower to pick it up then than you are now when you see it on 4 different videos? These are people you aren't talking to in person.
Right.
But is that stronger or weaker?
I definitely think having multiple voices sort of parroting each other in a recommendation is much stronger than a single person saying you should read this.
And that is a social media effect.
And right? I think that is I think
social media. That might be a beneficial part, but we've all seen examples of how that turns evil.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So in terms of BookTube Burnout, when I talk to people about some variation of that subject, one of the complaints that they make, and one of the reasons why we have lost some booktubers, is because, yes, they wanted community when they started, but now they're starting to feel like they're losing what was a private treasure. Right. All of a sudden, there are other people involved in my reading, and I don't want that.
Taking a lot of the most solitary acts.
Yeah. And very pleasurable. Very pleasurable thing.
Right. And removing the solitary aspect.
it would be fair to say, wouldn't it, that your reading, my reading, it's not entirely personal anymore.
Absolutely not.
Right? That's fair to say. There are other people involved, and I've known readers.
I mean, I think the moment you make a video talking about something you're reading, it's no longer personal.
Well, certainly the minute you get responses. And people in your comment section are saying, gee, I thought this, or I read this because of you. I've seen comments on your channel saying, what do you recommend I read next?
Which is a great feeling, and that's the benefit of the community. But it definitely does remove sort of the solitary nature.
Yeah, it means there are other people involved there.
Right. Which I think is a good thing. I think there are pros and cons to that. Because I think it opens up a dialogue, which is a great thing. But it does sort of remove the, I don't want to say like the privateness of reading, but sort of the ability to not have to feel the pressure to express yourself to others about what you're reading, of being able to keep it an internal monologue.
In a sense, it does completely remove the privateness, right? Because it's not just that the zeitgeist has pushed a book in front of you and you're giving it a try. It's that you're picking up a book and thinking of Ollie, specifically, one person, you're thinking specifically of a novella. So there's another person involved there. I've always thought it was kind of ironic. The BookTube, which is staffed from stem to stern with miserable little introverts, have invited other people into
It's odd.
It is odd. It is odd.
Something they would never do if they had 50 people sitting in their living room yelling at them, read this book, but suddenly give them a
They wouldn't want 50 people in their living room talking about a book. Even if they love the book and love the people, they still wouldn't.
Right, but give them an empty comment section and a video talking about their latest read. They're swamped with 50 voices.
Makes it extra challenging getting some of those introverts into this room for wine and calzones. Makes that extra challenging.
Sure.
Introverts, I swear. Bean is yawning her head off here. But that's not you and that's not me. That's her. She needs more sleep than she did when she was much younger, and she doesn't like that. She doesn't like that fact. So she will force herself to stay awake. In just another year, she won't be forcing herself to stay awake. In just another year, she'll be sleeping all day long, all the time, straight through video. So Zoom tells me that we're running out of time. I want to ask, when it comes to BookTube burnout, which I think has cost us some booktubers, I think that is the reason
absolutely
have left. This is all just.
I've noticed personally 3 channels I used to follow. They have removed their videos.
It's gone. It's gone completely. This
is completely.
I don't want all this business going on in my reading. I'm losing something. They felt
beyond videos, email silence, Voxer silence, just complete ghosting.
So if we look at that as the extreme of that's one end of the spectrum is BookTube burnout, and then the other end of the spectrum, I assume we would have to say would be me. If we look at those two ends of the spectrum, where are you? Does that vary from day to day? Are there ever days when?
I think it does. I think it does vary. If I'm particularly busy in my
job,
boring normal life, feeling the pull of BookTube, but then having my dumb adult responsibilities that I have to attend to, I do feel that pull. Like, well, maybe I just back out of this event, or maybe I just quit this buddy read.
So you have felt that. Maybe I could, in a really nice way, ask,
very fleeting, because then I realize, no, I can handle this. I don't need to give up the good stuff. And then there have been other times too when I feel like, hey, I could take on another buddy read, or I'm going to join this other event, even though I'm already a part of 3 others. Why not? So I definitely think it comes and goes, sort of, day by day. But never a feeling of wanting to completely unplug and delete my videos.
Okay, so you're not all the way to that end of the spectrum.
No.
I'm thinking about it. The whole reason that BookTube burnout is on my mind. I mean, Mike's video was fantastic anyway, but it's on my mind because I decided midweek that I would make this weekend my mea culpa weekend for every single BookTube event imaginable.
Absolutely.
And when I actually wrote them all down so I wouldn't forget anything, and it was 16 things. That's a lot. That's a lot.
That is.
And that can happen.
Each has a book or multiple books attributed to it.
Yeah. So that naturally made me wonder where on the spectrum not so much commentators, but although commentators commit themselves too.
Absolutely.
I mean, BookTube video makers who don't just commit themselves to the reading, they also have to make videos on the subject.
Right.
I wondered where everybody falls on the spectrum of BookTube burnout.
Between leaving and Steve, I'm probably a 5.
Between leaving and Steving. Where are you between leaving?
Between leaving and Steving, I'm probably a 5. I'm right in the middle. Where I am confident that I will stay, but then I still have human doubting. I'm not to Steve level of no doubts at all, tackling everything, and completely deleting all my videos and living in a cave.
The danger of overcommitting, that's got to be made significantly worse if you put yourself in the position of being bullied on Voxer into an event or two.
That's very true.
Nice. That's got to be a
very
living
true.
nightmare.
Saying I'm not going to be a part of an event. 30 Voxer messages later, I'm making my announcement video.
That's got to be a living nightmare. Oh my God. I changed my
mind. I won't do it. I'm not being forced to do this at all.
Well, which reminds me that we should pick something after Essex Dogs.
We should.
I think I know exactly what I want it to be, but we won't make the same mistake. We'll pick a book that's already out instead of making a newbie mistake and picking a book that's been published yet.
Our UK friends have been fine, but our stateside friends have been very annoyed, I'm sure.
Well, this was wonderful. So now we have a report from the field, a booktuber who is right in the middle between leaving and Steving. He's right in the middle when it comes to BookTube burnout. Of course, I want to hear from all the rest of you.
Absolutely.
Where are you, especially other BookTube creators? I think it's safe to say that we all know where Michael K. Vaughn stands. He's pretty close to a nervous breakdown, after which he won't be allowed to make BookTube videos. He'll be in a rubber room. And then there are other people who've realized, I went in a lot on this, and it is starting to cut into my time. So I need to pare back quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then there are people who haven't noticed that at all. Haven't noticed that trouble at all. I make 3 videos a week, and that doesn't impinge on anything. It only is the good parts, only the positive parts. Absolutely. I'd love to hear from all of you, especially the BookTube video makers, where you stand on the spectrum between Steving and leaving. Where are you? Are most of you doing okay? I was
there she is.
What's she doing? You want to come down here? Oh, there you go.
Look at that.
Oh no. Sometimes she just wants to come down to the couch, and sometimes she wants to go down to the floor, and she did, and she can't get back up on her own.
No.
I always wish that she would reconsider, but sometimes she wants to do a perimeter patrol for mice.
Yep.
She
can't get back to her perch.
Not without either a lot of insane encouragement, or usually I just have to pick her back up and put her back up here, which is difficult when you don't like moving.
Right.
Well, this has been wonderful. This sort of did verge into another episode of BookTube Talks, but that's fine by me. A lot of people will find it interesting, I'm sure. And our subject was BookTube burnout.
Yes.
Specifically, how much has BookTube moved into your reading life, and how much do you like that? Especially when it comes to content creation, right? It'd be one thing if you were just a viewer.
Right.
It would still happen if you were just a viewer. You could still be
another level with creation.
Yeah, you have to set up a camera.
Right.
And ring lights to take your pants off. You have to make videos on these subjects, or you'll be letting the side down.
Right.
Like, for instance, for the Pessoa next month, you'll have to do at least 1 video, right?
Right. At least 1. Probably a handful. Baby. Just to give it justice.
Come on, baby. Plus, you've got to read that 1,000-page biography. Come on, you can do it. Come on.
Absolutely. Or 2 of them.
I almost upended the camera.
She's trying. Come on, you can do it.
No, sequestered in the sun. Well,
she's happy. She's good.
She is. She's settled now. She did a perimeter. They're not going to be out and about in the middle of the day. I don't know what she's thinking. Although she's caught about 10 of them that way. She caught about 10 of them who were napping. They just thought, what's the middle of the day? It's bright sunlight on the floor. The creature won't be out and about.
Can't nap in the afternoon at Hyde Cottage.
Not on the
bean will find you.
I wish I could talk to these creatures. I don't mind them as roommates. I wish I could talk to them.
Don't be here in the middle of the day.
Stay on the counters. There's plenty of food on the counters in the kitchen. Stay on the counters. Stay on the bookshelves. Just don't go down on the floor.
Don't go to the
floor.
floor.
Is now a death zone. The floor has a creature on it that was genetically engineered for 500 years
Kill
to
you.
do exactly that, to kill you. Not a fringe benefit. It's not. She wasn't made to take gear or anything like that. She's made to kill you.
Take you and rip you into 1,000 pieces.
And she only lives on the floor. So just stay away from the floor and you'll be fine. I don't want to kill you at all. I will put a trap anywhere.
Right.
And it's horrible too, because you know that when she grabs one of them, others are watching. And she isn't content with simply, she crushes the upper spinal column. So death for that mouse is instantaneous.
Yes.
The pressure there is just, it's one solid snapping alligator-like bite. But she's not done when she does that. Then follows the body thrashing. She thrashes the body against the floor, against the cabinets, against the wall.
The family just has to watch.
You know the family's watching. You know they're underneath somewhere watching that happen.
Go to the counters. Go to the shelves.
Anyway, and this devolved into a science fiction dystopia. Sorry.
Pretty good idea for a novel, though.
Well, we'll just wrap this up and say goodbye until tomorrow's live stream.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because Mike is committed now.
There we go.